Hi everyone and welcome. My name is Ariel and this is Healing with Solstice. Hi and welcome back. Today we will be talking about timeline pressures, the impact of timeline pressures, societal pressures on our mental health and our mental well-being. What I've noticed a lot with clients that I work with people that I talk to, with friends in my life, is that a lot of people, when we're younger, myself included, have a vision or a timeline for our life that can sometimes be very rigid. There are those free folks who live life day by day and don't plan anything. And then there's a lot of people who plan the details of their life to a T. I graduate high school. I go to college. I graduate college. Maybe I go to grad school. Maybe I get a PhD. Maybe I go to law school. And then by 30, I get married. I get engaged. I have a kid by this age, and they have a plan for their entire life. Oftentimes when we make plans like that, life laughs at us because you can't control the timeline of your life, right? There's often a lot more to it than just saying, this is how I want my life to be. And sometimes it can create really rigid structures for people. And you're not also considering where that timeline is coming from. So many people have similar timelines, and those timelines are pre-wrote for you. Even the major you decide to go into in college, the career you choose, oftentimes a lot of those decisions, those timelines decisions, those decisions about your future, those thoughts about what your future can look like are based on societal pressure, the pressure from your parents or guardian, pressure from your friends or your community system, religion, etc. There are external pressures telling you that you should do life in this way, you should live in this way, you should expect this, and it's written for you, right? And I noticed a lot of that for people when they're experiencing their life and they're like, I'm almost 30 and I don't have a relationship yet and I'm not married yet. And then they feel like a failure. They feel like they haven't done enough. They feel like they're behind, or let's say it took them longer to finish college or get a degree or to find a career that they really love. Then they feel a lot of pressure, a lot of disappointment, a lot of shame because they feel like they're not where they're supposed to be or where they plan to be. But what if that plan is not yours? What if that plan comes from years of people telling you who you have to be, who you should be, who you ought to be? What if you take time to just pause and ask yourself, is this timeline that I made really going to make or break whether or not I'm successful in life, whether or not I'm happy in life, whether or not I've made it? A lot of times it's like, everyone's collecting Facebook, what do you call them things? The Facebook achievements, like, well, so-and-so got married and so-and-so got a new job, or they're collecting LinkedIn achievements, or they're collecting achievements for other people, for their parents to be proud of, for their friends to be proud of. But what about what you want? What about what makes you happy? Because I often see those people who are gung-ho and driven towards achieving their goals, and they're type A people and they planned out their entire life and then they achieve it all. They go to college, get a degree, go to grad school, graduate, go to get a PhD, get married, have kids, and then they land at the end of all of these things that they planned, pushing through, not for once pausing to think about whether it's something they really want, checking off the boxes of life, and then they get to the end, and that's often when they'll land in therapy, either after a divorce or after some real soul searching, maybe after a pandemic of sitting with yourself and your partnership and all the decisions that you made, and they realize, I'm not happy. This is not what I want. This is not making me feel the way that I thought it would. I got the marriage, I got the partner, I got the job, and I don't feel okay. I still feel empty, lonely, sad, depressed, etc. And that's because those things aren't going to create happiness for you. Checking off boxes, achieving goals are amazing. This is not to diminish the person that can do that. There's so much strength in that. But along the way, you pushed your own desires and needs and goals, or you pushed away your own inner knowing to achieve these goals that may not align with who you are anymore, right? Maybe you're meant to be a starving artist, or maybe you're meant to be a singer. Maybe you're meant to be something outside of the vision that your parents set for you, that society set for you. Maybe you're meant to have a delay in some of your goals. Maybe you are not meant to get married until you're in your 40s. Maybe you are not meant to have kids when everyone else is having kids. Maybe your life is meant to be different, and that is okay. That is okay. It is okay to not live according to everyone else. But I think when we're in friendship groups or we're in communities and we're seeing everyone hitting these goals, joining run clubs and getting married and baby shower after baby shower, sometimes it can feel like you're in a vacuum. Like everyone is doing this. I guess I have to be doing it too. What's wrong with me? Why am I not achieving the same goals as them? It's not what's wrong with you. It's just that you're different. Your timeline is different. Your needs are different. You're a different person. And I think for queer folks, that can often be a lot easier to shake out. Myself as a queer person, I think I noticed that really early, that a lot of straight folks are following that traditional marriage, kids timeline. And for queer folks, we couldn't even get married until 2015. And so it changed for a lot of queer folks around 2015, or maybe now they're chasing the heteronormative expectations of what they should be doing. But a lot of time being an LGBT person, being queer meant that you had to re-envision your future. You had to re-envision your life because so many of the heteronormative societal expectations were unattainable for us. Now, a lot of what we've pushed in civil rights movements has been making sure that we have equal rights, so we can get married, so we can adopt kids, so we can have kids. So now queer folks can achieve those societal norms, heteronormative norms. But I think a lot of queer folks, because of that discrimination, because of what we faced, it has made us question whether or not those decisions are truly ours. And that makes sense for a lot of the queer folks in my life, but I know that can be different for every person. There are still some queer folks who are following that heteronormative timeline. They want to buy a house and have kids and do this, and they're checking off the boxes. But I think if you're watching this video, my goal is just for you to sit with yourself, to pause, to journal, and to ask yourself, is this really what I want? Is achieving these goals going to make me happy? Is it really a bad thing to disappoint people? Is it really a bad thing to be different? Sit with the shame you feel. Sit with the feeling of feeling not enough or behind, and ask yourself why. Think about all the things you have achieved. Sometimes healing through after a traumatic childhood is as big as someone getting a degree, right? You have endured some heavy stuff and you sat there and maybe you went to therapy, or you got healing, or you were resilient and you made it through something really, really tough. And maybe that other person didn't. Right? And so you can compare their highlights or their check boxes, but there's a lot of things that people are experiencing, enduring, achieving that aren't on the societal heteronormative list of check boxes. And where do those expectations come from? They come from patriarchy. They come from years of men telling women what they should do. And what if we start to unpack those gender norms? Or if we start to unpack there are many men who don't really ever think about when they're going to get married or how old they have to be or what time they have to have kids. Maybe they have those desires inherently, but I do feel like they have a lot more freedom to be able to choose what their life looks like. But for women, I feel like it can be a lot more strict and rigid. And for queer folks, we're maybe leaning somewhere in the middle where we can see and queer our own relationship to heteronormative milestones and patriarchy, but then we're also still embedded in it and living in that culture. And for a lot of queer folks, they just do want to live a quote unquote normal life and have normal quote unquote milestones. But we're not all normal. We're not all meant to live traditional. The better word for that is we're not all traditional. You don't have to follow the traditional path. My biggest lesson throughout my entire life was that nothing about my life was going to be traditional. I'm a Black queer woman from New York. Everything about my life has been unique in so many different ways. I come from a family, parents of immigrants from Haiti. Like I have a lot of experiences that has shown me that my life will not be traditional, and it will also not look like the traditional second generation, child of immigrants life either. I have chosen paths that forge outside of traditional. And I love that about myself. And I hope that you, if you're someone that is not achieving the same goals as others, can see that maybe you also aren't traditional. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. That doesn't have to mean that you're a failure. That doesn't have to mean that you're behind. That doesn't have to bring you shame. You don't have to compare your life to other people and feel like you're not doing enough. That where you are, your journey, your timeline, what you chose is enough. You are always exactly where you're meant to be. You're not behind. Everything that was meant to happen for you is happening for you. And as frustrating as it could be to not check off boxes, to not finish the to-do list, to not be on the same path as the people around you, it does not mean that anything is wrong with you. It only means that we're all human. We all have different journeys. And the more that we learn to embrace those journeys and allow space for that diversity, to allow space for non-traditional timelines, non-traditional choices, and non-traditional futures, the more that people can feel comfortable being their full, whole, and authentic selves. And I hope that for you. So that's all I have for today. I'll see you in the next video where we'll be talking about dysfunctional families. All right, bye.